Hey guys, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. We are switching gears a little bit this week. We've done sewing, we've done painting and switching things up. This week, we're gonna dive into a little bit of woodworking. Now, of all the skills that I have, I feel like woodworking is one of the things that I am least good at. So we're gonna be getting some help today. My dad is super good at a lot of this stuff and has a lot of tools. For this week's project, I found these two cigar boxes at Goodwill. One of them is in really good condition and has a really cool graphic on the inside. So I think I'm gonna leave that one as is. I'm a big believer in that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality when it comes to thrifting things. If it looks good and it's in good condition, why touch it? But the other box was kind of damaged. It didn't have as many cool design features to begin with. So we are gonna do a little chopping up and make it into a little perfume holder rack thing. I've seen a lot of these on Pinterest for like as spice racks or as like test tube holders, sometimes essential oil holders. Basically, I have these really cool fragrances from Margiela that I've been wearing for years, and they come in these longer tubes. They're the little sample sizes, and I always thought they were really beautiful and wanted to display them a little bit more prominently, but I didn't have the right thing for that. So hopefully we'll be able to reconfigure this box into something that can store and display those fragrances. So here we go on a field trip to my parents' house. Boom. I started by removing the hinges and closures on the box so that I could separate the halves and play around with the design. There are so many options for the design depending on the features and dimensions of the box you're working with, as well as the look and function you're going for. The best design for my box was this two-tiered design with an open tray that could house larger bottles. I decided to use the top of the box as the bottom tray since I like the lettering on the inside. I measured to find the center on the back half of the box, drew a line across it, and then cut it in half with a handsaw. I used clamps a lot throughout this process to help me hold the box in place while I work, but you can hold it down yourself or have a friend help you hold it if you don't have any clamps. Once the back was split in two, I folded the two halves together to create the back rack piece. At this point, I measured my fragrance bottles to figure out how high the walls of my rack needed to be. The front piece came out to 2 inches and the back piece was 3. However, I added an extra 3/4 inch to the front since I needed to have enough to reach the bottom of the tray after I notched the corners. More on that later. I opted to make these big cuts with the power saw since I wanted to practice, but they could be cut by hand as well. I pushed the box up against the back guard to keep it square, lined up the blade where I wanted it, then turned on the saw and slid along the box from front to back. In all honesty, this was kind of terrifying, but it was so much faster than doing it with the handsaw. Notching the corners on the front piece was best done with the handsaw again since I needed a lot of control. It was tricky to hold and to get the saw to slide. I cut inward at the 2-inch mark I had made and then downward right along the inside edge of the box. This left me with a small notch that would allow the front to sit down inside the box. Next, it was time to drill the holes for the tubes to sit inside. I needed to find a drill bit that would be loose enough to allow the tubes to pass through freely, but tight enough to keep them from moving around too much. 5/8 inch was too big, 1/2 inch was too small. 9/16 of an inch ended up being perfect. I had to go to the store to get this one. I created a cardstock template that matched the top of my rack pieces and marked the holes where I wanted them. I taped the template to the top and drilled right through the center mark of each hole with a small drill bit. Then I went in with the larger one.
It turns out my box was particularly difficult to drill through since the part I was drilling into was curved slightly and there was a support on the inside of the box that covered my holes halfway. This caused the drill to catch and basically ended up tearing my box apart. However, we came up with the solution to place a chunk of spare wood under the top to help even out the part where that support was causing problems. It wasn't a perfect solution, but with enough clamping it worked out okay. I also got better at feeling for how to control the drill as I went. Again, this shouldn't be an issue on most cigar boxes since the curves and inner supports on this box were pretty unusual. At this point, I decided to use the pieces of the box that were cut off before to create little stands that would allow the bottles to sit up higher. The back row had a taller stand while the front row just got a little boost. I used a fine grade sandpaper to sand around any edges that I cut, and especially around the holes that didn't drill so well. If you wanted to refinish your box entirely, you could sand everything and apply stain, but I opted to keep the original finish. Now we just glue it all together. I applied wood glue along the points of contact and then clamped them together to help them set properly. This allowed us to glue multiple pieces at once. Then I wiped any excess glue away. Again, if you don't have clamps, take your time and hold each piece in place until it sets. And it's done. Before and after in 3, 2,